Sarah didn't want anything fancy that day. She just wanted to feel good. She wore her favorite blue dress. It was clean, soft, and simple. It wasn't expensive, but it made her smile. Her hair was tied back, and her shoes were a little old, but still strong. She looked like someone peaceful, not someone rich. The sun was bright as she walked into the shopping street. Around her were big glass stores, bright lights, and signs with prices that looked like phone numbers. One store caught her eye. A big golden sign read, La Femme, luxury for the elegant woman. Sarah stopped. A red dress in the window pulled her in. It was bold, shining under the light. It wasn't just a dress. It looked like a dream. She remembered her anniversary was next week. Maybe, just maybe, she could try it. She opened the door. The inside smelled like roses and money. 3 saleswomen stood near the counter. All wore tight black dresses, high heels, and too much perfume. Their eyes moved to Sarah at once. One of them whispered to another. They laughed, but not loudly. "Can I help you?" A tall woman with red lipstick asked. Sarah smiled softly. "Yes, I was hoping to see that red dress in the window." The woman blinked, then looked Sarah up and down, from her simple dress to her worn shoes. "That dress," she said, her smile thin. "It's very exclusive. Not many can afford it." Sarah nodded politely. "It's beautiful. I'd love to just try it on." Another saleswoman joined in. "Ma'am, are you sure you're in the right store? The mall has some nice options across the street." Sarah's heart sank a little, but she tried to stay calm. "I'd like to try it. Please." The third woman turned and walked to the back, pretending to check something. After a few seconds, she returned with a small fake frown. "I'm sorry. It's already on hold for another customer." Sarah's eyes shifted to the dress in the window. No tag, no hold sign. A soft laugh came from the counter. One of the women whispered, "She thinks she can afford that." Sarah heard it, clearly. Still, she smiled. "Thank you for your time," she said. She turned and walked out, slowly. Her eyes were wet, but she didn't let the tears fall. Not yet. Behind her, the sales staff laughed again. One even pulled out her phone and took a picture through the glass. "She came in here like she was gonna buy it," she said. "Look at those shoes." Outside, Sarah stood still. The sky looked a little darker now. Her hands were shaking, but her face was calm. She didn't cry in front of them. She didn't say one bad word. She simply reached into her bag, pulled out her phone, and called one person. Her husband. "Hi," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Can we talk when you're home? Something happened today." He listened quietly, and when she told him everything, he didn't speak for a few seconds. Then, in a calm, serious voice, he asked, "Which store?" Sarah told him the name. He didn't say much after that. But that night, he didn't sleep. He sat at his desk, looking at his laptop. He made a call, then another, and another. The next morning, something happened that the staff at La Femme would never forget. But Sarah didn't know that yet. She sat at home with a warm cup of tea, staring out the window. All she knew was one thing. They judged her because of how she looked. They laughed at her pain. And they didn't know who she really was, or who her husband really was. But they were about to find out. David was not the kind of man people noticed in a crowd. He wore plain clothes. He spoke softly. He didn't like showing off. If someone saw him on the street, they might think he was just an ordinary man with an ordinary life. But they'd be very wrong. He had built 3 companies from nothing. One of them was sold for millions. He had offices in 5 countries. His face had been on the covers of business magazines, but that was years ago. He walked away from that life. Now he just wanted peace, a quiet life with his wife, Sarah. She was his world. And he didn't need to show the world who he was. Not anymore. Until now. That night, When Sarah told him what happened at the store, something inside David changed. He listened to every word. He didn't interrupt. He didn't ask twice. His eyes were calm, but cold. He looked out the window as Sarah spoke, his hands resting on his lap. When she finished, she whispered, "It's okay. I just wanted to tell you." David said only 4 words. "No, it's not okay." He stood up, walked to his office, and shut the door. Sarah sat in silence, watching the door, her heart heavy. Inside that room, David's quiet mind became a storm. He opened his laptop, clicked through files, made phone calls, pulled up financial records. And then, he made one very important call. The man on the other side of the phone answered quickly. "Mr. Langford, it's been a while." David didn't waste time. "I want to buy something." The man laughed. "A company? A property?" David's voice was steady. "A store." He said the name. There was silence. Then the man said, "La Femme. That's a luxury brand. High-end. Multiple partners. Hard to buy out." David replied, "How much?" "Sir, it's not for sale." "Everything is for sale," David said. "You know that. Make them an offer. A big one. Enough that they don't think twice." The man on the phone paused. Then he said, "Understood. I'll call you back." David leaned back in his chair. His eyes were sharp now, focused. He didn't want revenge out of anger. He wanted a lesson to be taught, not with shouting, but with power. The kind of power that didn't need to scream. The next morning, the store opened as usual. The same 3 women were standing at the counter. They laughed about their nails, their boyfriends, and last night's dinner. None of them thought about Sarah. To them, she was just another poor woman trying to look rich. They didn't know their world was about to flip upside down. At exactly 10:32 a.m., a black car stopped outside the store. It wasn't flashy, but it was expensive. The kind only rich people recognize. A man stepped out. Dark blazer, simple shirt, sharp eyes. He opened the glass door slowly and stepped inside. All 3 women looked up. "Good morning, sir," the tall one said. Her voice was suddenly sweet. "Looking for anything special?" David looked around the store once. Then he looked at her. "I'm looking for the owner," he said calmly. The woman blinked. "Why?" David didn't smile. "Because I need to speak to them. Now." The manager walked out from the back. He was a large man with a shiny watch and a loud voice. "I'm the manager here," he said. "What seems to be the problem?" David turned to him. "You're not the owner. Call the owner. Tell them I'm ready to buy." The manager laughed. "Sir, this is not a local shop. We're not for sale." David handed him a card. A single name. A single number. The manager's smile dropped slowly. He stepped into the back and made a call. 15 minutes later, he returned. He looked nervous. "The owner says he'll speak to you directly." On the phone. David took the phone and spoke just 4 words. "My offer still stands." There was silence. Then, deal. By noon, the papers were being drawn up. By 3 p.m., David Langford legally owned La Femme. But he wasn't finished. He made one final call. "Bring her here," he said. "Sarah." That evening, David returned home. Sarah was sitting at the kitchen table, reading a book. He kissed her forehead. "Come with me," he said gently. She looked at him, confused. "Where?" He smiled. Back to the store. It was a normal afternoon at La Femme, or at least, that's what the staff believed. The red dress still sat in the window, sparkling under the lights. The same saleswoman stood at the counter, chatting and sipping iced coffee. They had already forgotten the poor woman who had walked in the day before. They didn't know the store had new ownership. They didn't know everything was about to change. At 4:00 p.m., the door opened. A man stepped in quietly. Same simple blazer. Same calm face. Same steady eyes. It was David. But this time, he wasn't alone. Sarah walked in behind him. She wore the same blue dress from yesterday, the same one they had mocked. But now, she didn't look unsure. She stood tall, calm, strong. The laughter stopped. The three women stared. Whispers flew between them. Is that her? Did she really come back? What is she doing here again? One of them quickly walked over with a fake smile. Welcome back, ma'am. Can we help you today? Her voice was sweet, but her eyes were nervous. Sarah didn't speak. She just looked at David. He nodded. Then he turned to the entire store. I need all staff at the front. Now. The manager came out from the back. His face lit up when he saw David. Sir, hello. Welcome again. We spoke earlier. David looked at him for a long second, then turned to the rest. I want to make something clear, he said. His voice wasn't loud, but it was sharp, like a knife cutting through silence. This store has a new owner. Gasps. All three women turned pale. One of them dropped her phone. The manager's smile froze. David took out a folder and placed it on the glass counter. Inside were signed papers, ownership papers. The staff stared in silence. Sarah didn't say a word. She just looked around, at the same place where she had been humiliated, at the same people who had laughed at her. David continued. Yesterday, my wife came here. She was treated like she didn't belong, like she was invisible, like her money, her heart, and her worth didn't matter. The room was dead silent. He turned to the woman with the red lipstick, the one who had told Sarah the dress was not for people like her. You judged her, laughed at her, lied about the dress being on hold. She looked down, shaking. David didn't stop. You didn't ask her name. You didn't ask her story. You saw her dress and decided she wasn't good enough. He turned to the others. You joined in, mocked her, took photos, called her names. The manager stepped forward, trying to smile. I had no idea she was. David raised a hand. No, you didn't know, because you didn't care. That's the problem. Now, he turned to Sarah. She is the kindest, strongest woman I know. She never needed fancy clothes to prove her worth. But you needed this reminder. Then he looked back at the staff. You're all fired. 3 words. That's all it took. The silence turned into panic. What? Sir, please. We didn't mean it. Please give us another chance. But David was firm. I'm not angry, he said. But this store will now stand for kindness, respect, and grace. None of you belong in a place like that. One by one, they left. The tall woman with red lipstick had tears in her eyes. The manager tried to plead, but David didn't say another word. Sarah stood there quietly, still shocked. She touched David's hand. You bought the whole store, for me. He smiled gently. Not for revenge, for change. No one else will go through what you did. Sarah walked slowly through the store. The same lights, the same mirrors. But now it felt different. She looked at the red dress in the window. She stepped toward it. A soft smile came to her lips. This time, there was no one to stop her. That night, Sarah stood in front of her bedroom mirror. She didn't say anything. She just stared at herself. The red dress, hugged her frame perfectly. It shimmered softly in the bedroom light. The same dress that once made her feel small now made her feel strong. But it wasn't the dress that changed. It was her. She didn't feel like the quiet woman who walked into La Femme 2 days ago. She felt like someone who had finally been seen. David stood behind her, watching with pride in his eyes. It looks better on you than in the window, he said gently. Sarah smiled, but it was soft, unsure. David, I never wanted all this. He walked forward, took her hand, and looked into her eyes. I know, he said. Sarah never wanted to fight the fashion world. But it came to her. After she became the owner of La Femme, things didn't just change inside the store. They started changing outside, too. Some people laughed. She's being too soft. She'll ruin the brand. Luxury isn't about kindness. It's about power. But Sarah didn't listen. She had already been laughed at once, and she had survived. Now she had a mission, and the world was starting to notice. She changed everything. No more fake smiles behind the counter. No more judging people by the price of their shoes or the size of their wallet. She welcomed all kinds of customers, young and old, rich and poor, bold and shy. She made sure every dress had a story. Some were stitched by women who had once been homeless. Some were designed by young girls from broken homes. Some were created by single moms who worked all night and dreamed all day. She didn't hide their stories. She shared them. Each dress came with a small card. This dress was made by Leela, a mother of two who used to sew in her bedroom after her shift at the diner. She dreamed of being in fashion. Now she is. People didn't just buy clothes anymore. They bought hope. Big fashion companies started calling. They wanted to partner with her. They offered her money, lots of it. They told her to make the store look more exclusive again. One email read, "Too much kindness is bad for business." Sarah smiled and deleted it. She didn't want to be part of their system. She wanted to build her own. So she changed even more rules. She held no makeup Mondays. She told her staff, "Let people come as they are. They're beautiful without pretending." She set up a donation box at the counter where customers could leave gently used dresses for women in shelters. And once a month, she closed the store to the public and opened it just for struggling women who needed clothes for job interviews. She didn't put it on social media. She didn't want likes. She wanted change. One afternoon, as Sarah arranged a row of new dresses, the doorbell rang. A woman walked in. She wore a gray suit, simple, clean. Her hair was tied back tight. Her heels were sharp. Her eyes were cold but curious. Sarah greeted her with a warm smile. "Welcome to La Femme," she said gently. The woman didn't smile back. She walked slowly through the store, touching fabrics, checking the quality, watching the staff. After a while, she turned to Sarah. "My name is Candace Monroe. I'm from Vogue Style Weekly. I write about brands that are trending fast." Sarah nodded. "Nice to meet you." Candace raised an eyebrow. "You've gotten a lot of attention. Celebrities are wearing your dresses. Your name is on TV. Some people are calling you the kindness queen of fashion." Sarah chuckled softly. "That's not a crown I ever asked for." Candace looked serious. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. "This, charity. These rules. Giving dresses away. Taking in designers no one's heard of. It's not how luxury works." Sarah didn't answer right away. She walked over to the display window, the one with the red dress. She pointed at it. "2 weeks ago, I was humiliated in this store. They said I didn't look rich enough. They laughed at me, called me names, sent me away." Candace blinked. "And now?" she asked. Sarah turned to her. "And now I own it." Silence. Then Sarah added, "Luxury shouldn't make people feel small. It should lift them up. That's what we're doing here." Candace slowly nodded. She walked to the exit. At the door, she paused. Then she turned around. "Can I book an interview? For the magazine?" Sarah smiled. "Only if you come back on No Makeup Monday." Candace's lips twitched, almost a smile. Then she nodded and left. A week later, Vogue Style Weekly hit the stands. The front page. The woman who redefined luxury. Under it, a photo of Sarah, no makeup, soft smile, standing by the donation box. The article went viral. People across the country started asking, "Can luxury also be kind? Do I need to look rich to feel beautiful?" Why can't more stores be like hers? Sarah didn't answer the world. She just kept doing what she believed in. She didn't change her style. She didn't wear gold or glitter. She didn't raise prices to look fancy. She just stayed real. And in a world full of noise, her quiet kindness echoed the loudest. It was a quiet Wednesday morning at La Femme. The soft scent of lavender candles filled the air. The new staff smiled warmly as they folded dresses, hung scarves, and offered tea to early customers. Sarah was in the back room, helping a young designer pin her first collection. Laughter echoed from inside. The energy was light, safe, full of purpose. Then the doorbell rang. It was just another sound, but something about the footsteps made one of the girls look up. She froze. Her eyes widened, and then, softly, she whispered, "It's her." Sarah stepped out to see who it was. The moment she did, time slowed. There she was, the woman in the red lipstick, the same sharp heels, the same perfect bun, the same cold eyes. But something was different. This time, she looked tired. Not tired like she missed sleep. Tired like life had finally caught up with her. She walked slowly toward the counter, her eyes scanning the space. It didn't look like the La Femme she remembered. It didn't feel like it either. She stopped when she saw Sarah. Their eyes locked. For a long moment, neither said a word. Then the woman spoke, softly, without the pride or poison she once had. "Hello, Sarah." Sarah's voice was calm. "Hello, Marie." Yes, that was her name. Marie, the one who had laughed at her, judged her, lied to her face. The same woman who once said, "This dress isn't for people like you." Marie looked down at her hands. They said the store had changed. I didn't believe it, until I saw it with my own eyes. Sarah nodded slowly, not saying anything. Marie took a deep breath. "I was fired. The same day your husband came. No one would hire me after that. Word got around. People called me cruel, shallow, cold." She looked up, eyes red. "I lost everything. And I blamed you." Sarah's face stayed still. "But over time," Marie continued, "I realized you didn't take anything from me. I took it from myself, my pride, my judgment, my ego. It made me blind." A silence fell between them. The other staff members stayed quiet, listening from a distance. Marie stepped closer, then paused. "I'm not here to ask for a job. I'm not here to beg. I wanted to see the woman I hurt." Sarah's voice was soft, but steady. "You saw a blue dress. You didn't see me." Marie nodded. "I know. And now you've seen the store. What do you see?" Marie looked around. At the new staff, the community wall with photos and stories, the free dress shelf, and the donation box. She whispered, "I see what it was meant to be." Sarah looked at her for a long moment. Then she asked, "Why did you judge me that day?" Marie sighed. "I was taught that luxury was only for the rich. I thought kindness was weakness, and I thought looking expensive made me better." Sarah nodded again, slowly. Then she walked behind the counter. She took out a simple gift bag. Inside was a blue dress. Not expensive, not flashy, just soft, simple, elegant. She handed it to Marie. Marie looked shocked. "What is this?" "A second chance," Sarah said gently. "Not here, not at this store, but for yourself, to remember who you are without the mask." Marie looked down at the dress, speechless. Tears welled in her eyes. "I don't deserve this." Sarah gave a soft smile. "Neither did I. But life gave me a second chance, so now I give them too." Marie broke down, quietly, not loudly, not dramatically. Just tears of someone who had been carrying shame for too long. She left that day with a bag in her hand, and a heart that felt just a little bit lighter. As she walked out, one of the new girls walked over to Sarah. "That was her?" she asked softly. The one who mocked you. Sarah nodded. And you gave her a gift. Sarah looked out the glass door as Marie disappeared into the crowd. Then she said quietly, "Sometimes, the ones who hurt us the most are the ones hurting the deepest." The girl didn't say anything, just nodded. Sarah turned back toward the store. The mirrors, the lights, the dresses, everything was the same. And yet everything had changed. She had faced her past. And this time, she didn't fight it. She forgave it, because La Femme wasn't just a fashion store anymore. It was a place of healing, and even those who once broke others could be given the thread to stitch themselves back together. It had been 1 year since Sarah bought the store. La Femme was no longer just a boutique. It was a movement. People came from different cities just to visit, not because of price tags or fame, but because of how the store made them feel. Safe, seen, special. Behind every dress, behind every smile, was a message. You are enough. But no one knew what was about to happen next. Not even Sarah. One morning, Sarah stood at the shop window, sipping her tea. There was a strange stillness in the air. Then her assistant rushed in, phone in hand, breathless. "Sarah, you need to see this." Sarah looked at the screen. It was a message from the mayor's office. She blinked. "What is this?" The assistant smiled with wide eyes. "They want you at City Hall tonight. There's an event. They said it's urgent, and you're the guest of honor." Sarah's heart skipped. She had never even been to City Hall before. That night, she wore a dress made by one of her first employees. Nothing fancy, just soft blue with hand-stitched patterns. Her husband held her hand as they entered the grand building. Flashes went off. Reporters turned. People clapped. Sarah looked around, confused. "What's going on?" she whispered. Then from the stage, the mayor stepped forward. He held up a hand, and the whole room went quiet. He smiled at Sarah. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, "some people build buildings. Others build businesses. But very few build hope." He paused. "This city has watched something rare happen in front of our eyes. A woman who was once judged for how she looked turned her pain into purpose." He turned toward Sarah. "Sarah Malik, you didn't just open a store. You opened hearts. And tonight, we honor you with the City of Grace Award, the highest award we can give a civilian." The room stood up. Applause filled the air. Sarah stood frozen, tears in her eyes. She wasn't used to stages. She wasn't used to claps. She had been silent most of her life. But now, everyone was listening. She walked slowly to the stage. The mayor handed her the golden plaque. The words read, "To the woman who made kindness fashionable." The crowd cheered again. Sarah stepped to the mic. She looked at them, all dressed up, shining, watching. And then she said, "I was once told I didn't belong in a dress, that I didn't look rich enough. I walked out of a store feeling small, invisible." She paused. "But that pain, it became my fuel. I didn't want anyone else to feel that way again." She looked around the room. "You don't have to be rich to be respected. You don't have to wear diamonds to be seen. Every woman, no matter her skin, her size, her job, or her past, deserves to feel beautiful." Another round of claps. "I didn't build La Femme for the wealthy. I built it for the women who were always told they were not enough." Her voice softened. "And to the girls watching this at home, the ones who are scared to dream, who feel ignored, I was once you. But I promise, your time is coming." She smiled. "And when it does, make sure you leave the door open for others." When she stepped down from the stage, dozens of women came forward. Mothers, students, workers. One by one, they hugged her. Some cried. Some whispered, "Thank you." Others just held her hand. Outside, the news trucks were waiting. But something even more powerful was happening on the streets. Hundreds of people had gathered. holding candles, wearing blue ribbons. They weren't there to shop. They were there for her, for what she stood for. A little girl sat on her father's shoulders, waving a sign that read, "One dress can change the world." As Sarah stepped outside, the crowd erupted in cheers. It was quiet for a second. Then, like a wave, people began chanting softly, "La femme, la femme, la femme." She covered her mouth with her hand, overwhelmed. Even the police officers were clapping. A bus driver honked in rhythm. The whole city had stopped, not for a celebrity, not for a billionaire, but for a woman who had once been humiliated for not looking rich. Now, she was the richest of them all, in love, in respect, in legacy. The next morning, newspapers across the country ran headlines like, "The boutique that healed the city. How one dress store made history." She turned judgment into joy. And right under the headlines, a photo of Sarah. Simple dress, soft smile, no makeup, just her. The girl they once laughed at. The woman they now stood for. Because when you dare to rewrite the rules, the world has no choice but to listen. Every evening, just before sunset, the store's big glass window caught the golden light. People passing by would often see her there, standing quietly. No grand speech, no spotlight, just Sarah, watching, smiling, sometimes with a cup of tea, other times holding the hand of a small girl. That little girl was her daughter, now old enough to ask questions. "Mama," she once said, pointing to the photos on the store's memory wall, "who are all these ladies?" Sarah crouched down beside her and smiled. "They're brave women, strong women, women who believed in each other." Her daughter thought for a moment. Then she asked, "Are you one of them?" Sarah paused, then nodded softly. "I try to be." That night, Sarah sat by the window long after the store had closed. She thought about the journey, the humiliation, the tears in that dressing room, the shock on people's faces when her husband bought the entire store, the fear when she first opened La Femme, the love that followed, the forgiveness she gave, the crowd that stood still for her. She never planned to be famous. She never wanted to be a hero. She just didn't want anyone else to feel less. And somehow, by choosing kindness over revenge, she had started a quiet revolution. A few weeks later, one of the young women who worked at the store came running to Sarah, holding a letter. "Miss Sarah, this came in the mail today. From another city." Sarah opened it carefully. Inside was a handwritten note. "Dear Sarah, my name is Amira. I live in a small town where women like me are never told we're beautiful. Your story reached us. I shared it in my sewing group. We cried. We laughed. We stitched a banner that says, 'We are enough.' You've never met us, but you changed us. Thank you for standing in that blue dress. With love, Amira, and 12 proud women of Send." Sarah folded the letter slowly and closed her eyes. The message had traveled farther than she ever dreamed. Later that month, the original boutique, La Femme, was now just one of many. In 5 cities, new stores had opened, but they all followed one rule. Every woman who enters this store must leave feeling stronger. No customer was ignored, no skin tone judged, no wallet sized. Each shop had a kindness corner where donated clothes were given for free to anyone who needed them, no questions asked. Sarah trained every new employee herself, not in fashion, but in listening. One afternoon, an elderly woman walked in. She looked nervous, holding an old purse close to her chest. A young staff member greeted her. "Welcome. How can we help you today?" The woman whispered, "I'm not here to buy. I just wanted to see the place." "Of course," the girl said kindly. "Take your time." As the woman walked around, her eyes filled with tears. She stopped at a blue dress on display. Then she whispered to herself, "I wish this place existed 40 years ago." Sarah heard her from the back and walked over. She gently asked, What would have happened if it did? The woman looked at her and smiled sadly. I think I might have believed I was beautiful. Sarah didn't say a word. She simply hugged her. One final twist. One evening, as Sarah was locking up, a tall man in a suit approached. He introduced himself. Hello, ma'am. I work for a major fashion house in Paris. Sarah raised an eyebrow. Okay. We've been watching La Femme, your philosophy, your impact. We'd like to offer you a global partnership. Sarah smiled politely. That's kind, but I'm not interested in selling. The man nodded. I understand. But this could put your name on magazines, billboards, even Fashion Week. Sarah chuckled softly. I'm already on the only billboard that matters. He looked confused. She pointed to the store window. Outside, a girl was twirling in front of her reflection, laughing. No fancy lights, no camera crew, just joy. Pure, simple, real. That's my billboard, Sarah said. And it's enough. Years later, a little girl, now a teen, stood behind the window, just like her mother once did, watching the world, helping another young customer choose a dress for her school debate. She smiled and said, You don't need the perfect dress, just the one that makes you feel strong. When asked who taught her that, she said, My mama. She once turned a moment of shame into a world of hope. And somewhere, in a quiet room filled with fabric, stories, and heart, Sarah sat with an old photo in her hands. It was that day. The day she was humiliated. Blue dress, judging eyes, a broken heart. She didn't hate the memory anymore, because that pain had made her powerful. And now, every time a woman walked out of her store with her head held high, that memory lost a little more power. Because Sarah had done the impossible. She didn't just change fashion. She changed what it meant to walk with dignity. No diamonds, no spotlight, just a quiet fire, warming every heart that walked through her door.